Good afternoon, John Phinney. Great to have you here. Please introduce yourself, John.
Yes, thank you. My name is John Phinney. I am the CEO of Convergence, and I worked on Wall Street for 25 years prior to founding Convergence in 2013.
Great. And tell me a little bit more about your company.
Yeah, I'm excited to. We are what's called a data as a service company, similar to software as a service or SaaS. We're called DaaS. We specialize in providing insights. Our clients don't want to deal with big data. They don't want to deal sometimes with the analytics involved with the data, and they sometimes want to leverage the subject matter expertise that we have in the industry. So I'll call it, outsource to us the creation of insights, which then mobilizes us to collect data, curate data, enrich data, and then analyze data to produce that insight. What we do is we look at the other side of the coin, meaning once you've invested your money, are there reasons for you to be concerned that that manager may fail in the running of their business?
So this gives you an even more better perspective when you're going to invest or have invested.
Yes, absolutely. And we've been serving investors for years. When you put your money with a manager, you're doing it for some longer duration. The last thing you want to deal with is and notice that they're closing the firm for reasons that perhaps you didn't understand on day one. So we specialize in three things, just to be clear as a company. We've been talking about risk. So operational risk is one thing we specialize in. We provide analytics on top line growth. So those are the three things that we provide.
Very interesting services which you provide. But we're also curious to hear from you what your perspective is on how to grow a company nowadays in the best way.
Well, the trends for asset managers. So you got to divide the market into different things. If you're talking about, managers, service providers, investors, it depends on what you're talking about. So I'm going to talk about GPs and the investment managers. For them to grow today, they clearly have to be able to tap into the trends. So managers globally to grow, they have to be able to tap into some of these trends, democratization. To do that, they have to understand that asset management's a business. Investors expect maturity. They expect transparency. They expect, quite frankly, collaboration. It's about your ability to communicate in a very effective manner. And I will say, again, when I say maturity, it means a lot of things. And I just want to spend a minute on a term that I use a lot. And I would ask all your listeners to this podcast to think about this. It's called data literacy. Literacy, meaning how literate, how mature, how educated, use your words, right? But how literate is the manager in understanding the data that they use, not just to invest, but the data that they're using to keep their business safe and sound for investors? What kind of risks are out there at the end of the day? Is there an appreciation for that? Is there an appreciation for what could go wrong? Listen, on the investment side of the coin, they're wonderful. They know every risk and every remedial action to take when things don't go right on the investment side, right? They trim up, they trim down, they hedge, they have all these tools and techniques. Well, when you think about the other side of the coin, non-investment, are they as literate? And the answer is no. That's just an emphatic no, and no one will disagree with this. Managers do not spend enough time understanding what I'll call exogenous and endogenous risks that they face running their business. Running a asset management business is complicated, all right? There are no less than 17 different activities that take place in an asset manager on the investment side every day and on the non-investment side. If any of those break down, there can be problems the investor never anticipated. And again, is it pervasive? The numbers are big with respect to problems, but they're not terribly well communicated because they're embarrassing. They're embarrassing for the advisors, for the managers. They're embarrassing for the regulators. They're embarrassing for the service providers, in many cases, who are hired to protect the investor in some ways from, I'm not going to call it bad actors, although that's certainly part of it, but just what we call inadvertent errors, mistakes, omissions that can really hurt an organization. So that's kind of a, sort of comprehensive view of what Convergence does. And we're a big data company. So let me be very clear. We collect, study, and create a lot of data because we're trying to answer questions for our clients. How do I grow, John?